Hey guys, Lemon02. Currently doing a Canadian Highlander recording. Canadian Highlander is a 100 card unified or singleton format with a point system, 10 points total for each deck. It is not Commander. Kind of looks like Commander, but it has no Commander card. The decks tend to look and run more like Legacy/Vintage decks. Each deck has 10 points. So cards based on their power level. There are certain cards that are pointed cards, and based on their power level, they are giving a certain allotment of points. In this deck, which you have in front of you, which is medium red, which is likely soon to become a little bit more medium than it is right now, because I think two of the cards that are currently in it will increase in points in the near term, based on determinations made by the council for changings of points. But the points in this deck are Mana Crypt at 3 points, Soul Ring at 3 points, Mox Ruby at 3 points, and then Mana Vault at 1 point. I think relatively soon, really due to this style of deck, the medium style decks, Mana Crypt and Soul Ring have kind of shown that they probably are more powerful in this format than Moxen are. It kind of sounds like heresy to say that like Moxen are less powerful than like a card you can probably pick up for $20 from Revised or less. Mana Crypt I think is still like $500. It's kind of crazy to think that I got that damn thing from a book as a kid for like buying a crappy book that was like $5. But anyway, that all said, like this deck has probably 2 extra free points in it. There's a lot of different medium spreads that you'll tend to see. Sometimes the medium spreads don't run a Mox in them, and they'll run like a Jit plus a Strip Mine, and they'll cut the Mana Vault. This build of medium red is very high rolly, so it runs all the fast mana that it possibly can, just chalks all of it in there, has all 10 points in speed mana, runs Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, which is pretty common in these style of decks. Simeon Spirit Guide, not uncommon as well. I honestly wouldn't it looks sideways at someone if they played an Elvish Spirit Guide here just to have a colorless source. Lotus Petal, probably fine too, but it's getting a little dicey, you know. But that all said, you know, this deck is basically red deck wins with an increased curve. So, as opposed to doing like 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, like you would in like a typical burn deck or red deck wins, or like 1-drop, 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 you know, 1-drop, 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 2-drop, 1-drop, you know, based on your turn sequence. This deck tends to go 3-drop, 4-drop, 5-drop. That's the ideal draws. So, in your ideal openers, which I think the biggest skill set when it comes to this specific style of deck tends to be keeping on fast mana, keeping on hands that have explosive capability. And what are the cards that give you explosive capability in this deck? Well, they're this row of cards right here that I kind of just talked through, kind of what distinguishes these decks as being medium. And, you know, I guess Sarkhan's a little bit less so, but Sarkhan does actually make mana for a significant number of the cards in the deck. Really, it's the other one. Sarkhan is a mana producer. That's kind of why I put him over here, but he's not really... he doesn't really fall into the same category as the rest of these. He's kind of like a miniature Basalt Monolith for dragons, but a little bit weaker, and he's not 0 to 1 mana to produce a vast amount of mana. So, that said, you know, these are more high-rolly decks, the way these medium-style decks work. The deck breakdown is frankly really simple. Like, when you start breaking it down, I don't have a ton of piles, I don't have a ton to talk through in regards to, like, what you put in these decks, excepting that, like, I think there is a more ideal distribution. There tends to be a more ideal distribution, like, and I think this is pretty close to it. You want to have answers to the board that are also flexible things that can go to face. I mean, Flame Slash is go to face, but it's just very powerful. Chain Lightning is a lot of damage, can't go to face. Sorcery Speed, it's 1 mana. Forked Bolt can be a 2-for-1. Grim Lavamancer, great 2-for-1 card in red. Can help control the board early, because this deck can have some draws where it plays out more like a mid-range deck. Bolt, plays offense and defense really well. Scred, just a great card. I mean, this can just kill much bigger things than you would expect for 1 mana. It tends to scale up a lot better than Bolt does, and sometimes even more than Flame Slash. And the fact that it's instant does kind of give it a little bit more utility over Slash. Immolation Shaman, this is just Disruption. And actually, I think this guy should just be over here. This is not removal. Immolation Shaman got in the wrong pile. Sorry, guys. Incendiary Flow, just burn. Can kill off a Finks right away. It actually exiles whatever it kills, so that's kind of one of the other reasons it's in here. Plus just 2 mana, 3 damage burn, which is good. Incinerate, Lightning Strike, both in here, as well as Searing Spear. So basically 4 copies, excepting Incendiary Flow as a sorcery speed spell. Mizzium Mortars. This card actually can be cast for the Overload in this deck. 4 damage to everything is quite a bit, but being able to have like another effect, kind of like Flame Slash, is also not bad. Sorcery Speed, so it's a little bit mitigated, you know, in its upside, but still a fine card for removing creatures, big creatures. Arc Trail, can be solid 2-for-1 removal. Braid deals with any artifacts, and is also just another Lightning Strike, etc. for removing creatures. Sudden Demise. So this card is pretty good against like the homogeneous colored decks. Like if you're in like the medium green mirror, you can use this to wipe their board. Against Death and Taxes, you can use to wipe their board. Like basically any flood strategy is gonna get wiped out by this. One thing I will say that medium decks can struggle with is the hyper aggressive decks. Like if the hyper aggressive decks can go 1-drop, 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 2-drop, like from turns 1 to 3 on the play, they can sometimes outscale you. They can outpace you. They won't outscale you. You'll eventually just you'll be at a point where like they kill you one turn before you would kill them. So you kind of do want some of these effects to kind of like just trade for resources on the board. And oftentimes, maybe you're not even needing to trade for resources to make sure you don't die. Like you're not playing complete control. You're just doing it to open up lanes for your attackers to get through, some of your ground-based attackers. Fiery Confluence is just a beast of a spell. Can destroy artifacts, can kill your opponent, can remove a bunch of threats on the board. It's just an amazing spell. Probably, I don't know. I don't know if this is better than the Blue Confluence, Mystic Confluence. They're both very good. I don't know. This may be better. Like, this card is just a pounding. It's definitely more proactive. I don't know if it's better, but it's very, very powerful at 4 mana. Goblin Crater Maker, yep, it just does enough of everything. I mean, it can remove Emeralds if you need to. It can destroy a lot of artifacts. Of note, not Birthing Pod. It can destroy a lot of the Eldrazi, and can deal 2 damage to any creature. So, the rest of these cards right here that you have next are like the kind of like the card advantage cards. Now you'll note that like most of these are also threats. Like Karn can be a threat. Shadow Torch Defiance is kind of a threat too, but she can also get you cards. Pyromaster, same thing, a threat, but also can make cards. Fire Artisan, same thing, makes cards, but is also kind of, I wouldn't call her as much threat. Like to remove her is kind of threatening because it can just deal a bunch of damage to your opponent. Like if she pluses 1 up to 5 and they kill her on the next turn, she's probably doing 5 damage back to your opponent, which is a Lava Axe, which is a significant amount of damage. It's not an insignificant amount, and against a deck like this, a red deck, that is fairly aggressive, despite looking more mid-rangey, that's a lot. That's a good way to die. Faithless Looting, just because, the medium-style decks tend to, they have clunkier cards, right? So, like, you have these, like, bigger cards, like Stormbreath Dragon, like these Planeswalkers, that, if you can't cast them, they're bad. They're really bad. But if you have the fast draws, you just want to drop them. But you're not always going to get the top 10% draws in the deck, right? I mean, you're not always going to have your Mana Crypt or your Soul Ring, or your Ancient Tomb. Sometimes you're going to have to sit around and develop. And Faithless Looting really allows you to kind of do that, to get rid of some of the clunkers in the deck and to develop your mana base if need be, because you're a red deck, you don't have a ton of card selection, you're kind of fighting off the top of your deck. And the ability to kind of, just find what you need to develop is generally very, very important. So Faithless Looting is great in the deck. I don't know if I have to say much about it being great. It's Bane of Modern, maybe not for this reason. It's more so for what it does to the graveyard or sits in the graveyard, but the fact that, this can help give you selection in a red deck for a fairly low downside of, like, you do lose a card off this, but, like, at the end of the day, this is not, like, per se a card advantage deck. It accrues virtual advantage by just clocking your opponent out. So having the right stuff at the right time is more important. These lands are in their own pile for 2 purposes. 1, they're all utility lands. 2, they all produce colorless widgets. The reason that colorless widgets are important in this deck is because we have cards like Thought Not Seer and a Reality Smasher. So we do need colorless widgets to cast those cards. We have Handware Battlements, which, this other card, Handware Garrison, is actually in the deck. So theoretically, you can make the 7/4 Writhing Township that makes 3/2 attackers. It's pretty ridiculous if that ever happens. Wasteland, yep, just, good point removal for lands, non-basic lands, kind of, just always been a thing. Mistress Factory, yep, good. Produces colorless mana, attacks when you need it to. Haven of the Spirit Dragon, we're running quite a few dragons in this deck, so, this upside on this card can happen. It also fixes for dragon spells, so if you for some reason have dog shit mana and need to produce red, this can produce red for your dragon spells. Mobilized District, yep, just kind of another, like, Mistress Factory. There's a few legends in the deck, so sometimes it's cheaper to activate, and sometimes you just need 3 damage, or you need a blocker, whatever. Mutavault, same deal. This just is another thing that just attacks. It's also a Warrior, which is actually a combo with another card in this deck. Where are you at? Not Pia. Not Karizev. I'm going to play Hell finding the card now. Najila. Yeah, Najila. This is a card. This goofball card. I make fun of this card all the time. Just like shock bait. Anyway, you have Scavenger Grounds. Yep, sometimes it can be necessary to get rid of a graveyard against like a Loam style deck. In general, like Loam is not a huge threat against this deck. Like generally, you're going to just kill them faster, and you have like Blood Moon and Magus the Moon to kind of stop them as well. But sometimes you just need to have a Scavenger Grounds to get rid of like reanimation target or whatever. Scrying Sheets, yeah, this is a way to draw value. So this is kind of one of the mid-rangey cards in this deck, and it also is just a card that produces a colorless widget. You're also running all Snow Mountains. I mean, if it wasn't pretty obvious, we're running Scred, Scrying Sheets. If I guess you're not familiar with it, the card reader should be showing it to you, but you pay 1 in a snow and look at the top card of your library, and if that card is a snow card, you can reveal it and put it in your hand. So that's all of my lands, and I believe Scred is snow? No, it's not snow. Never mind. Scred's not snow. Kind of feels like it should be, but it's not. Rashad Port, yep, just very, very powerful. Tapping down a land can buy a lot of tempo. Magus the Moon, Blood Moon, yeah, there's a few lands in my deck that, do get turned into mountains with this. Sometimes it's actually you want to turn them into mountains, which is kind of funny. But against a lot of decks, they're just game winners. And if you don't need them, you can Faithless Looting them away, or, sometimes you just, you get stuck with them, right? I mean, that's kind of, sometimes you have the luck of the draw and you draw into one of these two effects. But I think they're powerful enough that, like, in general, they're worth running in a deck that can get them down on turn 1 a decent bit of the time. It can get them down. All right, anyways, this next pile is the threats. So, really, like, you have some disruptive cards in here. Like, I've kind of mixed in the disruptive cards. Like, Harsh Mentor is more of a disruptive card. Same with the goofy Immolation Shaman here. But there are also things that just still clock too. Earthshaker Canra is something that can't be blocked. Kari Zev, just a good clock. Kind of hard to kill. Like, Kari Zev is a card that, like, in general is, like, probably worse than a lot of other 2-drops, but the fact that she has 3 toughness actually makes her more relevant in this format. She's just harder to remove. Like, Kolaghan's Command doesn't get her. Shocks don't get her. There's a lot of cards like Firebolt, Forked Bolt, a lot of fairly common cards that get played that, like, Fire Ice, Electrolyze, like, they just don't deal with her. Now, she is, again, she's a Caracas target, which can be problematic, but just a decent clock, kind of hard to deal with. Price of Progress, yeah, this just kills people dead. Eidolon of the Great Revel, again, this is kind of a disruption card. You see Eidolon in, like, the red deck win style deck is kind of more of, like, just an incremental win condition. In this deck, it's kind of it's intended as kind of a combo killer. You tend to play this against like Storm and like Academy and like hope that it tends to kill them if you play it early enough, or at least prevent them from winning. Direfleet Daredevil, yeah, just a powerful effect. Playing against Ancestral decks, very good. Time Walk decks, pretty good. Card's just kind of cool. Heart of Kirin, yeah, just a big thing to attack people with for a very low rate. We have a lot of big cards in this deck, so if you play them and they don't have haste, this card can just generally get in for an attack, and it flies, so it's kind of nice. Smuggler's Copter, card is just busted as hell. Filters your draw on an aggressive / mid-rangey deck. Flies, does a lot of damage. Not much not to like there. And it also accrues for 1. Sulfur Elemental, this stops a few random things. Like, it kind of, goozles Monastery Mentor. Death and Taxes doesn't intend to enjoy seeing this because they have a lot of X1 cards in their deck. A lot of them First Strike of note too, so I mean this card can't just get them. It's also pretty good against like white tokens, like white token strategies. And at the end of the day, it's just an uncounterable 3/2 that you can play whenever you need to, and that sometimes is good enough. Skepclan Berserker, this card just gets the combo decks. This could also go back up into the disruption pile, and Sulfur Elemental frankly could too, but Sulfur Elemental is just probably a more significant clock. Skepclan Berserker against like the Storm decks, against the spell-based control decks. This is just a house. It just gets them. Not a lot of damage, pretty easy to remove before it gets the +1/+1 counter, but the fact that it has haste, it allows it to be set up pretty well. Rampaging Ferocidon, not being able to gain life can be very relevant against or for a lot of decks. This thing is also just a house. It's 3-mana menace creature. Whenever a creature comes into play, it deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. This card is just very, very below rate for what it does. It's very good. PNLR, kind of again like another like a little bit of an awkward card, but you see like a lot of these converted mana costs are 2 in a red. That tends to be like the ideal casting cost for these cards because you have Ancient Tomb and City of Traders in your deck, and Soul Ring and Mana Vault and Mana Crypt, and you want to be able to basically power through as many of these cards as you can. That's why you have Najila in this deck. Najila, not really, like, I think in general you want to build more synergy with her if you're going to run her without, like, Mana Crypt, City of Traders, Ancient Tomb, and Soul Ring, because at the end of the day, she's a 3-mana 3/2. She has some upside if you have warriors that are attacking, because every time a warrior attacks, you get a 1/1 white warrior token. The Wooburg ability at the bottom there is probably, it's irrelevant in this deck at least. I've never actually read it. Untap all attacking creatures, gain trample, lifelink, they gain all the abilities in the world. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Okay, that's a pretty powerful effect, but this deck's never going to activate. never going to activate her for that. It's also kind of funny for me. I've never looked at this art on this card. This art is hilarious. She's like this armored badass warrior with like, these bloody ass swords in a coliseum with like little pink like tulips in her hair. It's kind of funny. She's pretty cute. Legion War Boss. All right, yeah, this guy's Goblin Rabble Master number 2. Handworm Militia. This card looks really weird on the card reader, but it's 2/3 that makes 1/1 red human creature tokens that are attacking, tapped and attacking. Yeah, it's just another Rabble Master. It's not as quick as they are. Rabble Master, yep, nothing really replaces him, but there's some other cards to try. Captain Legendary Storm. Yeah, this card is just kind of a doofus. Like it's a gray ogre with haste, but it makes mana, and it can pump itself with the mana that it makes. I often find that I just attack with this thing. I don't pop the clue the first turn unless I have like a relevant 2-drop or some burn that I want to use. Oftentimes it just sets up my turns after I play this card. But yeah, Captain Legendary Storm, kind of a doofy card, but is really made powerful in decks that can power down on turn 1 very easily. On-Crop Casher, this card does see a lot of play in other decks, unlike Captain Legendary Storm. Just a 3/2 for 3, very easily castable off our Tomb and Ring and Crypt. The fact that it doesn't allow me to block tends to be very good, though. Big Loads, Lodestone Golem. Card is 4 mana, 5/3. It's a house. Non-artifact spells cost 1 more to cast. Because we're powering out stuff quickly. Having this sort of stacks effect to buy some additional turns is just a huge amount of tempo when we're going to be presenting a lot of pressure very early in the game on our best draws. Plaudits here, yep, just Disruption, big body, underrate. Card's very powerful. It's effed up a bunch of formats, so yeah, it's good. Blood Break Regent, yeah, on the lower end, but I mean it still has the 2 in there for soul mana. It's a 4/4 flyer, and it's difficult to target. It's not I guess it's not difficult to target. It's generally undesirable to target, and it's an effect that actually impacts all of your dragons. So if any dragon is targeted with this card in play, the player that's targeting it takes 3 damage. Actually, I'm sorry, ability and opponent control. Spell or ability the opponent control, so it does not have to be a spell. Territorial Hellgate, just huge. So I'm not going to read this whole card to you, but it's basically a 4 mana 6/5 with flying and haste, and it gets to attack every other turn. It gets to attack the first turn it comes in, it taps itself down in the next turn, and then attacks again. It has a rule on it that is intended for multiplayer. This is not a multiplayer format, so it just taps itself down every other turn. It might as well have phasing on it. All right, Pia and Kieran Nalar. This card, could kind of go into the removal pile as well, but it's just underrate for basically 4 power across 3 bodies, 2 of which is flying, and it also has a relevant ability to actually dome opponents out. It can turn your artifacts over here into legitimate burn spells in the late game. Yeah, just a pretty good card. Legend, but, you don't really mind if they're bouncing this thing. Rekindling Phoenix, yeah, just kind of a harder to deal with threat. Like, it requires a Swords to Plowshares or a Path to Exile. It's a 4/3. It does not have haste. But, if it dies, it's going to come back unless they deal with it plus the 0/1. So it's kind of just a pain in the ass to deal with. And, you can kind of accept, like, some hinkiness in your cards in this deck. Like, you kind of see some cards you don't see play in other places because we're running a lot of cards that produce colorless mana. These kind of cards become more viable in the deck. Cloth the Hammer. You see playing like red deck wins. Better in this deck because, obviously we can power this out on turn 1 or turn 2. And in that kind of instance, it tends to be pretty good. Hellrider, yep, just does a lot of damage. Again, soul mana. Sarkin, the Masterless card. I don't know on this card. It makes dragons. It makes your Planeswalkers dragons, and it makes dragons. It's a lot of mana. I don't know. If there was another dragon, I'd probably put it in over this, but this card's fine. Reality Smasher, yeah, just a whole boat of damage. This thing's just goofy. Thundermaw Hellkite, yeah, just a big goofy dragon that kills people dead. 5/5 Flying Haste. When it enters the battlefield, it does 1 damage to each creature flying. Your opponent's control, tap those creatures. Yep, that's good. Stormbreath Dragon, 5 mana, 4/4 Flying Haste, protection from white, which is not an irrelevant bit of text. Has Monstrosity 3, which could come up, but typically speaking, they're going to be dead before you want to spend that much mana to do this. When it becomes monstrous, it deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of cards in that player's hand. If they have a lot of cards in their hand and you're activating this thing, they should already be dead. I don't know what you're doing. Skargan Hellkite, this is a newer card, so 4/4 Riot, so it could be a 5/5 when you cast it. Deals 2 damage to divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets. Activate this ability only if it has a +1/+1 counter on it. Sometimes this card's a 4/4 Haster, because Riot either allows it to enter with a +1/+1 counter or it has haste. Oftentimes I find I just make this a 4/4 Haster and just attack them, beat them down. Glorybringer, 4/4 flying haster. Again, another just big haste dragon. It kills. It's a flame tongue Kavu if you want it to be, but it exerts itself and does not untap the next turn. And then Emissary of Grudges, the biggest card in this deck, a big Efreet. It's a 6/5 flying with haste. So I have to read this card again. I've only ever cast this to kill someone. I've never actually used the ability. And as Emissary of Grudges enters the battlefield, secretly choose an opponent. Reveal the player you choose. So it's your opponent. Choose new targets for a target spell or ability if it's controlled by a chosen player, and if it targets you or a permanent that you control. Okay, so it's a misdirection that works on abilities as well, not just spells. Basically, is what this thing says. It's just a big 6/5 flying haste is what it is. It just kills people dead. So anyways, guys, this is medium red. I have not covered this deck yet. I actually dislike this deck. I don't care for what this deck does to the format. I don't really care for its play patterns either. It's a very good deck. Don't get me wrong. So I'm not saying don't play this deck. It's just not that fun. I don't have fun playing it as much, and I don't tend to have as much fun playing against it. The kind of games that it's going to tend to create are very high-rolly games. So what I mean by that is, like, you're either going to win in an overwhelmingly smashing fashion, like just obliterate someone, just make their ancestors embarrassed, or you're going to lose horribly. The biggest skill that goes into playing this deck is frankly just mulliganing it. How do I equate this to something else that like, someone would relate to that hasn't played this format? Another way I like to equate this would be like let's say you're playing like your goofy cousin and he's got a Cloud Post deck. And he puts Phyrexian Colossi in his deck. This is Phyrexian Colossus right here. I actually pulled it up because I was thinking about how to compare this deck to something else. Phyrexian Colossus is not the best thing you could be doing with Cloud Post, right? You could be casting Eldrazi with Cloud Post. You could play like Eye of Ugin and like Emrakul, whatever, and like get like 6 posts out and just win. But this thing's still going to kill you in that deck. He's going to get like 3 of his posts down and cast this thing and be like, oh, I win, because I have an 8/8 on turn 3 or whatever. That's kind of how this deck's intended to work. Like, the card quality is, like, good if you can cast it, but in a deck that's going to be playing 1 land a turn, in more typical decks that are playing 1 land a turn, the card quality is not high enough that they could ever rationalize playing it. So what you're really banking on is, like, getting these cards right here to just have these absurdly busted starts where you basically just run a bomb train on your opponent. You just go 3-drop, 4-drop, 5-drop, 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 you're dead, if they deal with every single thing, maybe they live, but they probably don't deal with all of it. One of them gets through and they just die to it. It's either the first thing or the last thing, right? I guess I would kind of equate this deck to like the goofy post deck that like for whatever reason is playing Phyrexian Colossus and like I don't know, like Colossus of Sardinia over Emrakul. Like, that deck's engine still is intact. It's still a good deck because of that. The engine is what makes that deck good, I guess is what I'm saying. Not per se the cards that they're using to kill you. They're just big-ass cards. And because Magic's not a game that has linear progression of power in its cards get infinitely more powerful as they go up in mana, they're still going to kill you, And it could be the same thing if you were playing like a modern Tron shell and you just put in Phyrexian Colossus in that deck. Is it the right answer to play? No. You'd probably lose in tournaments a lot more because you'd have Ugin and like Karn. But it would still win some number of the games just because it's absurd to be able to cast something like that on turn 2 to 3, or turn 3, I guess, in the case of Tron. That's kind of the philosophy behind the deck, though. So, like, when it comes down to playing this deck, I think the most important decision you probably make with this deck every time you pick it up is your mulligan decision. You really want to have one of these effects in your opening hand. And Sarkin, get out of here. You don't really count. Like, one of these effects. You want to have a couple of red sources as well. The only reason that I generally tend to rationalize not keeping the hand that has the ability to really power down early or fast is if I'm in a matchup where like disruption is going to be relevant and I think I have time, or if I have a really relevant hate piece that is castable in the early game against a certain matchup. Like something may just be so relevant that I'm like, hey, if I get this down, I win the game. Same can be said of like Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon. I may keep like a turn 2 Blood Moon or a turn 3 Blood Moon if I knew it could probably win me the game and I had some good interaction to deal with some creatures on like a 5-color or 4-color mid-range deck, But typically speaking, if you're just playing it out to have good draws, like you want this stuff that I'm kind of scrolling over right now, all this fast mana, you want to have at least a piece of it in your opening hand. Now, if you have multiple pieces, you're probably just going to ranch someone, ranch their whole family. That's kind of what the deck's set up to do. So it's kind of high rolly. It's a little die roll dependent. Like I played a lot of games on the other end of this deck where, like, if I had gone first and been able to thought seize their mana crypt or their soul ring, I would have won. Actually, I think I just showcased one recently, and maybe in a matchup. Actually, I played one against a player playing this deck, and I lost the first game in like spectacular fashion to a Mana Crypt. And then game 2, I like duressed and got their Soul Ring, and like they didn't play a spell that was relevant for the whole game, and I just won. That's the thing that can happen on it, right? So it's a very high rolly deck. The most important decision you make is on the mulligan. Obviously, you still want to play with proper sequencing throughout the game. You still have decisions to make, but like typically speaking, you're just trying to run the bomb train on folks. Just bomb them out. Just keep dropping bombs, and eventually they're going to run out, and they're going to just die. That's kind of the plan. Very, very simple. I do think in the near term we're going to see Crypt and Ring go to 4 points a piece as opposed to 3. And at that point, the deck's going to have a real choice. It's going to have to probably cut the Mox Ruby at that point because it'll only have 2 points left, and it'll be able to play like Mana Vault and then 1 free point floating, or it can cut Mana Vault entirely and play like Strip Mine or Umazawa's shit. Would probably be the point spread that's going to end up getting, which doesn't seem like a ton, but like not having an additional Mox in your deck does decrease the consistency of this build. That all said, I do think the London Mulligan rule favors decks like this a little bit more than like the A plus B combo decks and the density-based combo decks because you're really just relying on having a piece. Like, oftentimes if you just have like this Mana Crypt or this Soul Ring in your opener, even if you don't have great spells to cast with it, you're going to top deck into them because if you look at this big pile of dumb stuff over here, you'll just draw it. And when you draw it, you'll cast it, and it'll be good. Or it'll be good if you do it early enough. Now, I mean, if you just brick off and draw a bunch of lands, yeah, you may lose still. But, I mean, typically you're going to look to have these in your opener. Anyways, guys, quick pause. I'm going to jump into some gameplay with this deck and kind of showcase it before it gets up-pointed, I think, in the near future here. So back in a minute. Alrighty, folks, we are back for this Moulin Rouge. Alright, so here we go. Here's our hand. This hand definitely wants the red source in it. But it's definitely not a toss back. The big sell on it, I mean, it has Mana Crypt, right? I mean, like I was saying in the deck tech portion, like you want hands with Mana Crypt. It could get a little mana choked, but we've got Captain Lannery Storm. We're on the play. Captain Lannery Storm is going to make a treasure token, which is mana for the following turn, which gives me more options. If I hit another like vast mana source, I could possibly 2-spell, but likely I'm probably just going to ride out this or throw out this Hell Rider. So Lannery gets in there, does her thing, attacks for 2, is a Grey Ogre with haste, and makes mana on the following turn. I guess on this turn technically, but I'm not going to use till the following turn. Opponent's on a blue deck of some variety. They Prismatic Vista, so blue moon, blue white. I'm pretty sure Rami's on blue red. And all these games are actually going to be against Rami. I think Rami's a real solid player. I enjoy getting to play test decks against him. And I think oftentimes he's going to play well against me and give me a run for my money. So Scab Clan Berserker smacks in there. It's now a 3-3. It's going to be a big problem. Opponent gets down a Grim Lavamancer. So I'm going to go to a quick pause. So I kind of talked about this, how this deck functions. Like it's just a bomb train is what it's trying to do. I've generated pretty massive mana acceleration in the very early portion of the game through Mana Crypt. And my opponent is basically like in a spot now where like they can't afford to sit back and try to counter stuff. They're on blue-red. They're on blue moons. They have a lot of counter spells, probably like 20 to 22 in their deck. And they have some burn. But they don't have the mana to do all of it. Like they need to impact the board now, and they need to impact the stack so I don't do more to impact the board. So it's nigh unbeatable for them. Like this start to start is nigh unbeatable. And that's one of the big powers of like the big pulls of these medium decks and like why they're so powerful is because like this is almost impossible for like a deck like this to deal with. I have board advantage. I'm going to continue to gain more board advantage, and they are put in a spot where because they're at a mana deficit, they're unable to both react to the board and react to the stack to keep the board clean, from my continued bomb dropping. As it turns out, it just doesn't matter. Like we just kill them basically on turn 3 here. I don't know if they're literally dead, but they're probably very close to dead. They may be literally dead. This is 3+6. They're not literally dead, but they're probably dead. I mean, if they block, they're not literally dead. Anyway, they're pretty dead. I mean, they'd have to have like a sweeper on their turn. Like it'd have to be like a Sweltering Suns or something like that on their turn. And then even that would do 2 to them. And then I have Mutavault. They're Dobbs anyways. Yeah, they're just Dobbs. Like this is just it's not good. It's a horrible. It's one of the things like I don't enjoy playing against this deck on is like what are you gonna do? Like what are you gonna do? And like maybe that's just fine. Like maybe there's just if you have these cards, like it should be fine. But I do think there's a little bit balancing to it. That's why you're probably going to see Mana Crypt and Soul Ring go up. But anyways, this is a power of the deck too. Like this deck's very powerful. It's very good. When it has these kind of openers, like it's damn near unbeatable, right? Like, you just see my opponent folded in, turn 3. Anyways, guys, quick pause. We'll be back for game number 2 against Ramby here on Blue Moon. Alrighty, guys, we're back. Alright, what do we have? This hand is acceptable, but it's not anything flattering. I keep this hand because it's got, a turn 1 threat. I would have rather had another land in it, but I'm open to drawing to some lands. Draw to a land. Good deal. Not going to get stifled because I know Ramy's deck list. I think he's playing my blue-red deck list. Play on an Earthshaker Keenra. It's a thing that you don't in general want to kill because it has Eternalize for 6, which this deck can get to 6 very easily. Go ahead and dome my opponent for 2 here. Opponent does not much. They play a Brainstorm, taking 1 damage off of their Shivan Reef. Go ahead and fetch. Down to 16. Play Ponder. This is the kind of stuff I like to see. It means my next spell is going to resolve more than likely. So I go ahead and fetch here. Attempt to slam a Dagila. End up getting Force of Willed, which is just fine. Like, Dagila would have made another 1/1 if this Jackal Warrior here attacked. So they end up Force of Willing it, pitching off, I believe, a Mental Misstep. I think I'm fine with all of that because at the end of the day, like, it doesn't really... that's 2 cards for 1. I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm going to draw more dumb stuff to play. I just cast out Captain Land Storm here. I believe they cast a Disallow. I'd rather run that out because it kind of tells me more information about their hand. If they have Burn, they'll probably just burn off Captain Land Storm. If they only have Counter Magic, they're going to counter her, and I'd rather get more Counter Magic out of the way so I can resolve stuff like Chandra Pyromaster, which she resolves here. I go ahead and zero her to find more cards. It's kind of likely that I'm probably just going to exile something, but if I find, a 2-mana spell, I wouldn't mind casting it here. They go ahead and uptick Jace on me, leaving the card on top. So I have a Snow Mountain that I've drawn now. I draw my second card for the turn. Finding the Direfleet Daredevil, I use my opponent's Ponder because I figure Ponder's probably a little more powerful here than Brainstorm. I don't have a ton of fetches. I do see one on top, though, but I kind of want to find a 3-damage burn spell. I just want to dig deep enough to kill this Jace off. So I dome the Jace for 3, opponent's 2 cards, kill the Jace, and tell them, hey, do something about the board. They Arc Trail my board, which is fine. I still have Chandra, so I'm still drawing a lot of cards. Find a Wooded Foothills, tap my land for mana, play out this Pia, and... I Eternalize the Kenra. They're right back down to 1 card. This is going to put them on a 2-turn clock. I could have played out Pia and Kieran, but I figure... I think I remember thinking, I was like, if they have Counter Magic here, it's a lot worse for me. So I just want to put them on a 2-turn clock and force them to have a draw. They evidently don't have the draw they need. So yeah. We end up getting Blue-Red Moon with medium red. 2 pretty decent hands. The first hand was better than the second one, but the second game was a little more of a game because I didn't have Mana Crypt as an opener in my opener. But still, kind of a little bit one-sided. I feel like Ramy was just a little bit behind. I mean, he never really got card advantage off, and it's a tough matchup, right? Control is in a tough place against decks like this because a lot of their removal that is templated to kind of 2-for-1 and be good incremental 2-for-1 advantage doesn't scale. I mean, it gets some stuff in my deck, but in general, it's not dealing with the dragons. There's just too much stuff to counter. The pile of their counter spells ends up being smaller than the pile of just stuff that randomly wins me the game. So quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for the next match we're going to be showcasing with Medium Red. Alright, guys, back for match number 2. Alright, this hand was unexciting, didn't do anything. This hand I'm going to keep on 6. The reason being I have a Bomat Career, which can actually recoup me on cards, but this hand has no ramp. It has a little bit of disruption in the form of Wasteland. The real choice is, do I keep Karn or do I keep Lodestone Golem? I have to keep Karn because I think Karn is kind of a more high upside card. Lodestone Golem just dies to a bunch more, and Karn is actually an engine card that can actually kind of get me back into a game if I'm behind. Which I kind of feel like with this hand, it's going to be a little bit of one of those games where I may get behind in. This is not very quick. I don't really present a lot of pressure and kind of gain initial early momentum. Opponent's in a green deck, possibly 4-color Blood, possibly Bug. Hard telling. Go ahead and attack here, see if they'll trade. They ended up trading here, which is kind of interesting to me. I'm like, they're going to trade. I think that's not bad for me. They must have a lot of mana in hand. It kind of tells me a little bit about their hand. I should have attacked first with that card as opposed to just sacking it off. So I missed 2 damage there, which is bad on my part as a pilot. Don't do that. They play on a Tidehollow Sculler, take my Karn. I draw into mana here, which is not great. I do end up losing my City of Traders here. I blew up their black land, because I figure our green-black land. I don't know what was the most relevant there. I figure taking them off double green may be relevant. It appears it doesn't really matter here. They end up playing on a Doran. Take 1 damage off Doran. The Doran cannot block of note, and I draw into burn here, so I'm going to hit them down to 8 here. And now, if they take 2 more damage, they just die, I think. Yeah, and they take damage off a shock land here to attack me down to lethal on the following turn. This is a 9-ball, I want to say. No, it's more than that. It's 11. I just go ahead and throw the Incendiary Flow at them pre-combat just to be like, hey, man, I got it. And they go ahead and pack it in. And we go to game number 2. This is 4-color blood. More of an aggressive creature-based mid-range version of it. Not like the lowest to the ground version, like the 4C quote-unquote Basta list, but like a little bit lower-end blood style list. And actually, I think it's one of my builds because it's running Doran, and Doran's a card you don't see as much anymore, but it is. I think it's a good card. I think it's a lot of damage. It's a lot of stats for nothing. And actually, this effect on it can be disruptive to certain decks as well. Like Death and Taxes tends to hate that effect because, a lot of their creatures are X1s. But anyways, quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for game number 2 against 4-color blood. Alrighty, I'm back. Not a keepable hand, no mana. Not a keepable hand, 1 land. Keeping this hand on 5. It's got a Blood Moon, which is pretty good against 4-color blood. They cast Duress and get my Blood Moon. That's not good. Go ahead and draw to a Sulfur Elemental. Not a spectacular draw, but it's a card that attacks. It's castable more readily than my Hellrider. I just go ahead and burn off the birds here. It really can go either way on whether you burn off the birds or not, but I don't want to get hit by a 4-mana Planeswalker the next turn. They don't do anything on their turn 2. I draw into a Soul Ring here. Go ahead and fire it up. Play out a Hellrider. Attack. Rami says he didn't intend to keep this hand. I think he made a mistake keeping it. I kind of do a trick play here. I opt to attack and see if they want to try to trade, because they have an onboard trick to sack their fetch land and pump up the Knight of the Reliquary to a 3/3. I think it makes sense to try to keep it because it can do some pretty busted stuff with just being able to find lands. I go ahead and Arc Trail it to force them to fetch there, doing 1 damage to them, 2 to the Knight. After that occurs, I play out the Sulfur Elemental to give it +1/-1 because it's a white creature, it dies to that. They take a beating down to 2, and I believe they are just dead on board. I don't think they can deal with this. And that is game. Looks like Moto's having a tough time saying what the ending was, but I think the game just ends here. Anyways, guys, quick pause. Be back momentarily for the next game in these series of matches. Alright, guys, we're back. Hand is, was serviceable, but not spectacular. I'm going to keep this hand on 6. It's got a Faithless Looting. It's fine. It's not great. It's slow. Cast a Faithless Looting. Get rid of the 4-drop and one of the 3-drops. I don't know if it was more correct to keep PNLR. Maybe it was. Opponent's probably playing Bant Blink here, which is not a great matchup for us. They play out a Spellseeker, so it could be Bug Pod as well. They find a Time Walk, which is kind of interesting because we could actually, the highest upside play is to Direfleet Daredevil their Time Walk and take a Time Walk. If that occurs, we could just get locked out of the game too. Hard telling this early. So you get hit for 1 here. I'm sorry, we play out the Sulfur Elemental. For some reason, I think I misclicked and played this in the block phase as opposed to playing it during attackers, even though I have all my stops set. Rami and I talk during these games, and sometimes I make errors. That was an error on my part. I did want to eat the Spellseeker. It drops their ability to use Birthing Pod or like Neoform to do something broken. Alright, so they have Bramble Sovereign in play. I'm going to have to deal with that because that card's going to accrue a lot of value, and it's just big. It's hard to attack through. It's possible that I just wanted to kill it off this turn with the Bolt plus the Abrade, but I'd rather find a Scred or a Flame Slash to deal with it if I can. No such luck. I go ahead and attack with both, see what they want to do. They go ahead and block like that. I don't mind trading off the Sulfur Elemental as opposed to one of these burn spells. I kind of like keeping a Braid around to deal with a Birthing Pod or something. The Blade Splicer's cast, it dies instantly because of the Sulfur Elemental. End up drawing into the On-Crop Crasher. I use the mana from the Mana Vault to recast my Faithless Looting. Attack with all here, make the Golem unable to block, dome them for 6, down to 10. They cast a momentary blink, blinking the Spellseeker, get Winds of Abandon. Now, this is unfortunate because, if we look back at this game, I do think if this had been played more properly, we probably, if I had not clicked through that attack step and played the Sulfur Elemental in the block step, the Seeker's just dead. And it's a misclick. I intended to block it. But it's a thing that can happen in Moto, I do think it does change the game a bit, though. Go ahead and attack here, get him down to 12. I have a Hellrider for some surprise damage. Unfortunately, they Birthing Pod here. Hit me for 4 first, and are possibly, I think in my head, they're probably going to go find a Palace Jailer. We end up finding just an Obstinate Bailoff to go back up to 16. Take some damage off the Vault here. find a Chrome Box, which is not like the best of finds. It's probably one of the worst. But I do have a pretty decent attack here. I can slam into them for a significant bit of damage. I'm going to have to exert the on-crop crasher so that the obstinate Baloth cannot block, and dome them for, 8 plus 3? A lot, down to 5. And I'm possibly dead on this next turn. It really just depends on what they can do. They pod, get a Thrag Tusk. That's a lot of life. It's 5 more, to be specific. I draw a Bowmat Courier. The thinking is here, like, alright, so they Vendilion Clique. They can't realistically just take the Bowmat Courier away, because if I draw, like, Price of Progress, I can just win. That's kind of what I'm playing to here. So I'm going to make the attack. The attack is going to do utterly nothing except for put a card under Bowmat Courier. I'm going to sack the Bowmat Courier to well, I guess the attack does do damage off Hellrider. So the attack does 3 damage here. It's not really relevant damage because they have 6 non-basic lands in play, so unless they can blink the Thragtusk, they're dead to a Price of Progress. Sack the Bowmat Courier in response, find a Scab Clan Berserker, which does nothing, and I am dead, and I concede the game. Quick pause, guys. I'll be back momentarily for the next game. Alright, guys, we're back. Playing against Bamp Blink with this deck here. So this is a very busted hand. I am on the play, and I'm going to play a turn 1 Goblin Rabblemaster. That's a hell of a thing. This is one of the things Medium Red can do. It can just make games like this. The upward limit of this hand is not very good, but this is very powerful. I'm going to have them down to 13 on turn 2, play on a Wall of Omens. See what we draw here. I believe I draw into a Flame Slash. Yeah. Draw Flame Slash. Doesn't matter. I'm not making my land drop. I just blow this thing up. Attack with a bunch of goblins, put them down to 5, and they concede the game. So that is one of the powers of Medium Red. I think in this matchup specifically, like this matchup's interesting, right? So like Bamp Blink, probably infinitely worse against the combo style decks. If you're not seeing a lot of combo decks, it's a really good fair deck to play in like a fair meta because it accrues a lot of value. And if the game goes long, I think it will tend to beat the medium red deck. If the medium red deck has one of its like upper 25% draws, I think it's very difficult for most decks to beat it because you're just going to turbo out something stupid like a standalone threat like Goblin Rabblemaster on turn 1, or have like a Rekindling Phoenix on turn 2 or whatever. And as you hear, that's one of the powers of the deck is like sometimes turn 1 Rabble-Masters, and that's just enough. Like it's just too much if you're on the play. So quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for the last game in this match. Alrighty, guys, we're back. We're going to keep this. We really want to draw a red source relatively soon. But it's a hand I don't think you pitch back. It doesn't have a good threat presentation early. Lodestone, well, that still requires mana. I just go ahead and play out the Immolation Shaman. I think Rammy probably should have cracked fetch in response, but it's only 1 damage. It's not a ton of damage. This card is not very threatening against his deck. I guess against Pot it does more damage too, but not a huge downside to missing the fetch there. Take 3 damage off the Crypt, and just go ahead and attack for 1. Gonna leave up the burn here. I could start throwing burn at face, but that's pretty low upside. Could be right. Generally speaking, not going to be right. Generally want to get one of these bombs down. Ramby plays out a Teferi Time Traveler, bouncing the Immolation Shaman. I don't think I draw land this turn. I think I miss again. Draw just Carry Zev. I end up playing out Carry Zev because she's a little bit better of an attacker. She does 3 damage as opposed to 1. And I don't really want to burn off this Teferi yet because I have this Arc Trail, and like my hope is they play like a Mana Dork or a threat like this is fine that can be Arc Trailed. The way I get blown out here is if they have Cloud Shift or Ephemerate. That's just not good for me. I finally draw my mana, which is good, but like it's kind of untimely because I do have to deal with the Teferi and the Splicer this turn. The range of blink effects open up a lot when they're on more than 1 mana. And Blade Splicer is a card that can be a problem if I am unable to deal with it now. They do Field of Ruin main phase, which allows me to actually cast off this Incinerate, which is not a bad deal. They end up playing on an Eldrazi Displacer, but they're not unable to activate it right now because it requires a colorless widget to do so. Drawing a Forked Bolt. This turn, I'm kind of in an interesting spot. Like, I think, alright, looks like Moto's going to misremember this game. I believe I cast out I know I cast out the Rekindling Phoenix. This game evidently is broken, so it's probably going to fail to work. One of the issues we're going to do with this hand is that we kind of are mana choke the whole game. We managed to get our opponent down to a position where they're dead on the following turn, and they were able to attack us down to, I believe, 1 life. And we die to our Mana Crypt flip. which is a thing that can happen. But it ends up being a very, very close game, and it's too bad this is bugged because it was a really sick game. But Rami ends up taking it, and Moto is just broke. But yeah. All right. Let's see if we can skip this. What happens? Nope. All right, Moto's hung up. Anyways, guys, I'll just let you know, Rami wins this one. It comes down to a very tight game where, like, because I'm a little bit mana choked, which is a thing this deck can do because it's not, it doesn't have a lot of card selection. I'm unable to really present or get my threats down as fast as I want to. He's able to get to a point where he draws into some more relevant cards than I think what he currently has, like some Thragtusk and stuff like that. Gain some incremental life and have good blockers down. But I'm able to kind of get to a point where, like, I am basically winning if I win a mana crypt flip in the air because of a lot of his creatures are ground pounders and Rekindling Phoenix and Sarkhan and a bunch of Karn tokens kind of, gumming up the ground kind of allow me to set up a position where I'm able to attack for a lot of damage in the air. But unable to actually close the game out. Anyways, guys, I'm going to go on a quick pause. I'm going to go into the next game because unfortunately this one is broke. Sorry, hashtag Moto things. Alright, guys, we're back. This is the opener. This is a keepable 7. It's got one piece of acceleration. It's not the fastest hand ever, but it's got a decent sequence. I ended up putting the dragon under there. I think Price of Progress, it's hard to tell. And maybe I shouldn't have even played this out this turn. Maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know. Maybe I should have just waited. I was kind of worried about, like, Thoughtseize Duress. Like, I'm worried more about first turn hand attack than I am about Artifact Destruction on 1. And I think the value of this Chrome Box is actually even higher than this Rabble Master. Because I can draw more Rabble Masters. It's hard to draw more acceleration in this deck. I mean, there is more in the deck, but there's more Rabble Masters than there is acceleration, if that makes sense. So I really want to have access to this mana on the next turn. That's why I played it out there without, really a high upside. They know about the Price of Progress here. They go ahead and braid my Lodestone Golem, take 1. I can't really do much else, but I throw a Chain Lightning at their face. The reason I do this is because my plan is to Price of Progress them, EOT, and then hopefully draw into a Mana Source so I can kill them with the Skargan Dragon Lord. They play on a True Name Nemesis, so now it's going to be basically Force of Will or Bust here because it's outside Daze. Draw into a Mana Volts, cast the Volt out, pay for the Skargan Hellkite, and hit them for very lethal in the air. So that is Game 1 versus Jeskai with medium red. Quick pause, guys. We'll be back for game number 2. Alrighty, guys. We're back. Hands pretty medium. Mulligan that one. I think I mulligan that one. I keep this one because it's got some like decentish like low-end threats, but it's kind of slow. If it draws a Mox, it's fine. But it's just a medium hand. It's a medium hand and a medium deck. No, this deck as it's shown so far is pretty good. I mean, it's actually pretty good. I can't say it's not good. It's just, sometimes you get draws like this where it's just like land, go, land, 3-drop, land, 4-drop, It's just kind of an awkward hand. They cast an Impulse here. Rami's kind of getting to do what he wants to do, which is like not get beat the hell up in like turn 1 to 2. Kind of slow development here. This is going to get countered more than likely. Gets miscalced. Yep. I say roger that. Scampan Berserker is an easier one to kill, so like I don't mind getting it countered there. And even though he's playing a blue deck, it's a blue mid-range deck, so like it has creatures and stuff like that. Like Scampan Berserker is not the end of the game. Play out the Scavenger of Grounds. Try to cast a Rabble Master here. It gets remanded, and I say, okay. Alrighty. That is fine. Got 4 cards in hand. He's not really presenting any pressure on me, which is kind of good. He has no card engines, no pressure, so those tend to be good things. Draw into an Abrade. I know the Miscalc's gone, so like playing the land out's pretty low equity. Just having a land in play allows you to play around Daze. I want to try to get some surprise value on Handware Battlements in case he has like a Forked Bolt or a Flame Slash, and he plans on dealing with it next turn and allowing me to get a 1/1. At least Handware Battlements gets an additional 3 damage. Find an Agila. Card's fine. I play her out, try to give her haste here. Oh, I'm sorry, I play out both these threats. And I say go. So, alright, that gets blown up. So, I almost had the Handware Battlements combo online. Not almost. It was definitely going to die. They kill this thing too. So, they basically had a very reactive hand. They kill a lot of my stuff. Price of Progress to the draw for the turn. That's a pretty good one against Jeskai, especially with how they fetched. Like, there is 10 damage on board. I am sorry. There is 14 damage on board. Fight Fleet Daredevil. I just go ahead and cast this thing out. And I opt to get Preordain, I want to say. Yeah. I could have impulsed here to find like the singular best card, but I'd rather set something up. I find Captain Lannery Storm, play her out. They go ahead and do what? Lightning Helix her. All right, she's dead. They could have just blocked her too, but I guess they didn't want to tap there. I don't know. Get me for 4. This tells me that they either have counter magic or they have nothing. So I go ahead and draw a discard. I get rid of the Abrade here and play out a Mutavault. And get in 2 damage on a 21. A lot of non-basics on the board right now, so this Price of Progress is looking pretty saucy, but I think it's very likely they have counter magic in hand now. It's either counter magic or nothing, and like I'm kind of trying to ascertain that. They wouldn't have per se countered the Sarkhan Fireblood because they could just kill it with the Celestial Colonnade. Alright, so I go ahead and fire up the Mutavault here, attack with both of these for 4. Down to 16. Just cast out the Price of Progress and win the game. Like, Price of Progress just does it. They just don't have it. So evidently they were on goose eggs, and yeah, just get them there. All right, guys, quick pause. We'll be back momentarily for the next game in this series of matches. All right, guys, you're back. Yeah, this hand's... that hand was not keepable. This hand's actually pretty good. It's got a lot of dragons. So, yep, draw lands. Play land, say go. This is going to cast a Thunderbreak region on turn 2, if I'd like. Opponent is on the same deck, so Gyre Reach Bandit. I draw Simian Spirit Guide. I just opt to play the Thunderbolt Hellkite to get in for 5 this turn. I don't know if it was right or not. I'm going to take a lot of damage off this Ancient Tomb, which is not irrelevant. They cast out an Instigator Gang right here, which gets in for an additional damage. I opt to play out the Thunderbreak Regent, get in for 5 more down to 10, and have a 9 power hit on the following turn. Attack for 4, don't block. Play Eidolon out. I cast out Sarkhan. I do something dumb here. I thought Sarkhan said that it does 1 damage to that creature's controller if it attacks you or a planeswalker you control. It definitely does not say that. It just kills off all of the stuff. So whenever playing, each dragon you control does 1 damage to that creature. All right, so it doesn't kill off the Instigator Gang. It just kills off these 2 idiots, but I take 3 and go to dead. I just misread this card. It wouldn't have mattered really that much regardless because I had a Legion War boss, which is just 1 more blocker, which really would have been better. I guess I could not have. I just didn't have to attack. But then if they have any burn spell, they just win the game as well. So I don't know. Maybe I should have just like hung back and not attacked. I don't know. Yeah, I went for it. I read this card wrong is what it is at the end of the day. A lot of these cards, like, and I'll be honest, a lot of these cards are cards that I do not play with that often. So like, sometimes I think I know what they do and I F up. I guess that's the thing that can happen to folks. Sarkhan the Masterless is a card that sees play absolutely nowhere but in this deck, maybe in like, the most casual of EDH in this format. And what it actually says is opposed to what I thought it said, which is I thought it said it does 1 damage to any target, which I would have just directed at Ramby's face and won the game, is that whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, each dragon deals 1 damage to that creature. So it did board wipe him with the exception of the Instigator Gang. And then its abilities, I knew what they did, but I thought its static ability was better than it is. Anyways, we die in this first round and go to game 2. Alright guys, we're back for game number 2 in the medium red mirror. Hand's acceptable, but not anything spectacular. I keep this hand because it's got 1 piece of acceleration. Actually, it's got 2 pieces of acceleration with Lannery in hand. If I get to hit him with Lannery, I can at least accelerate into Pia and Kieran. It's not a spectacular hand, but it's acceptable. I play on a Bomat Courier, which I'm kind of happy to see because I have this Arc Trail, which templates pretty well against that, and hopefully another like low-end threat. Glorybringer's a good card, but we're pretty far away from that life, so I go ahead and exile it underneath the Chrome Box, and I cast out Lannery Storm to get myself, realistically, just to get a treasure token. I just want more mana right now. That's kind of why she's good in this deck, because she gives you a little bit of a mana boost. Rebates your next turn. They go ahead and get another card of the Bomat Courier. I go ahead and sack this and just play out this Dumbo, the Pia and Kieran. Get some tokens, and they go ahead and burn off my Lannery Storm with Incinerate. So she is very dead. They cast a Gyre Reach Bandit out. Hit me for 3. I'm not going to block it because I'd rather just get value off of this Arc Trail. Draw Mana Crypt a little bit late, but it's actually kind of nice here because it allows me to 2-spell this turn. Board wipe them with the Arc Trail and then just slammed in there for an additional 3. They play on a Lodestone Golem, which doesn't really do all that much right now other than like make my spells more expensive. I could have actually played out this Legion War boss, but it's irrelevant because I have lethal on board. I can just attack them for 5, 6, 7, down to 4, and then actually I guess I don't quite have lethal. I don't quite have lethal. So this is 5, 6, 7. I can hit them down to what? Down to 2. I can hit them down to 2. But they're in a position where they're probably not winning on the next turn. Maybe they could. I'm going to sack the Mana Crypt too, so I just don't have any outs to just like high rolling me with a 3 damage off this plus a 5 hit. I guess there are draws though. Like what could get them out of this? Like Fire Blast is not a card these decks commonly play. If it was, they could Dragon plus Fire Blast. I guess Lodestone Golem kind of locks them out of that too. Yeah, I think they're just dead here, but they obviously conceded, so they were dead. But I think I'm trying to think of their draws that could have killed me, and I can't really think of any good ones. So yeah, this is what fast mana does, and this is kind of what you want to have in the mirror is like just get mana advantage early and power them over, and then if you can get 2-for-1 removal, like Arc Trail was big in this game. Arc Trail plus the fast mana was what was relevant in this game, and then just having anything stick, just anything will do. It'll eventually win on its own. So. And it did here. Quick pause, guys. Back for Game 3 in the mirror. All right, guys, we are back for the final game here in the mirrors. This hand is horrible because it has 2 cards that are relevant in this matchup. 2 notes, Price of Progress and the Shaman, the Magus of the Moon, I'm sorry. This hand is not good, and I drew the worst card in my deck, Blood Moon. So, the one thing this hand has going for it over a 5... Was that a 5-card hand? No, it's just a 6-card hand. Over a 5-card hand is that like it has good removal if they have like an early development hand. It also has a Braid to deal with like fast mana. And Flame Slash can get whatever the first card they play off of their fast mana may be. So like I think it's acceptable. They play out a Legion of War Boss after braiding my Immolation Shaman. I just go ahead and Forked Bolt this thing. They have a 1/1. Cool by me. They mulliganed fairly far as well, looking for the good mana. But it doesn't appear they have good threat. They have mana, but they don't have a good threat base right now, so they're kind of trying to top deck to it. I just leave my mana open to a Braid if I need to. Yeah. And some bluff equity. I could play out the Moon here, but the Moon doesn't really do all that much. They play on a Rishport, which is a little upsetting because it's going to take me off Moon this turn. Try to Scabclan Berserker, and I have to say, well, go ahead. Yep. So another land for them, and I'm assuming they probably have 2 lands, or like a burn spell and a land, or maybe 2 burn spells in hand. They play on an Immolation Shaman, so they haven't really had something else. I just go ahead and braid this dude. He can get big right now, so he's kind of problematic. They tap one of my lands. Find a land of my own. I end up, I believe, slamming a Blood Moon here. No, I slammed the Scabclan Berserker to see what their last card is, but they tapped a little bit incorrectly here and are unable to actually burn it on my turn. So if they have like a shock variant burn spell, like they're a little bit, they're going to have to take some damage off of it, and they're not going to be able to kill it anymore, but they have a Searing Spear. Play on a Smuggler's Copter, tap one of my lands. Don't draw to a land, but play on a Blood Moon here. Blood Moon is actually beneficial to me because it takes them off of Rishadenbort, which means that I'm going to have up to 4 mana next turn, which means that I have access to my Fiery Confluence and my Chandra. I'm most likely just going to cast out the Fiery Confluence here because I want to get rid of this card filter and the threat they have on board, and do 2 damage to them, but basically just deal with everything that's going on right now, which I end up doing. Final land, go ahead and cast out the Storm Breath Dragon and smash them for 4. So opponent and I kind of kept opposite hands. Like I kept a hand that had payoffs if I got to mana, and my opponent kept a hand that basically had mana but needed to hit payoffs. I don't know what in general works out better. I would think in general, like you generally want to have like the fast mana at least early. But I don't know if you want to keep like land rich hands. I believe they were on a Mull to 6, but I have to go back and look at it. We were both on I think Mulls to 6 in this game. They were just kind of different Mulls. I don't know which is more correct. I mean, I ended up winning this, but I don't know if that doesn't mean I was right in how I mulligan this hand. I could have just gotten lucky too. I mean, that's something that can happen in Magic. But yeah, I have to go back and check. Like, I'm kind of curious about this game because like we definitely both mulliganed in this game, and we both definitely kept different styles of hands for the matchup. Yeah, so I don't know which was right. I mean, the highest independent draw off the top of any deck, unless you're like playing like Goblin Charbelcher, is a land. But even in that deck, like if you're talking specific cards, like the highest draw is still a land. There's still more lands than there are like singular spells in that deck. But yeah, anyways, end up taking this one here. It's kind of a weird game 3, but end up taking it down. Quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for the last game. All right, guys, back on a lot. I think I have 2 more games. So Anyways, playing against Ram again. This hand's unkeepable. Mulligan it. This hand, this hand's pretty good. It's got 2 pieces of fast mana. It doesn't really have a payoff, but it has a lot of removal. See a basic planes, so I assume probably like some sort of white weenie or death and taxes list. I go ahead and play out the Mox here. I don't know if it was correct to or not, but it allows me to leave up a Searing Spear. So if they play like a threat, I can just burn it off. They play out a Stone Forge Mystic, and I'm going to burn this off. It gets a Sword of Fire and Ice. I'm going to burn it off because I really don't want them to be able to get to 4 mana and not have to like get to 5. Basically, they don't have to get to 5 mana at that point, so it means that there's a higher probability they'll just cast it and not equip it at the same turn. I can Fiery Confluence it away. Draw to a Chandra, which is one of the things the deck is good at. Like, it's just good at top decking bombs. It has the fast mana, it casts the Chandra, imposing Sovereigns to play. I uptick Chandra here. I just go ahead and burn this thing off for 1 because I want to get some time with Chandra. They play out a Soldier of the Pantheon. I find this Karn. I believe play this Karn. Make a Construct. They blow up my Construct, attack the Chandra down to 5. Draw to a Pia Nalar, look again, just do some damage to them, get the Swords of Plowshares off this Direfleet Daredevil, kill their thing, play on a Scab Clan Berserker, hit them for 2, make it a 3/3, they play a land, and concede the game. So, yeah, fast mana, pretty broken. Quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for game number 2 between Medium Red and Death and Taxes. Alright, guys, back for game number 2. Yeah, that hand was probably keepable, but it was kind of slow. Had like 2 4s and then like 1 removal spell. They have a Chrome Mox, they have some fast mana themselves. Relic Seeker, that's a card I'm going to have to Flame Slash. It's a problematic card. I don't play the Chrome Mox out this time because I kind of want to develop my options more. I could be playing it out on turn 3 with On-Crop Crasher, but I don't know if that's going to be necessary. They have Anafenza plus Steel Shaper's Gift for Sword, which is a problematic card to say the least. Go ahead and exile the Hell Rider, which I don't know if that's correct or not. They're going to play the Sword out this turn. It's unfortunate. If I had found another piece of like fast mana, I could have thought I'd seared it away, but they have the Sword now, and yeah, we're kind of in some trubs. Go ahead and look at their hands. Tide Taker, just exile it. Attack them. Do 3. Now they can equip the Sword, but it's going to trade pretty exactly for the Thought Knot Seer. I had another option here. I could just hang back, but I actually opt to attack here. I exert, joking around. It's going to get blocked for value. I still have the Mobilized District to block on my turn. And I go ahead and do that. They find a wasteland and say, oh, oops. So they missequence this. It's kind of a little bit rugged. They're going to attack here. I go ahead and block with the Eldrazi. It's going to trade, give them a card back. They have Harm's Way, though, and I lose my Eldrazi. That kind of sucks. Opponents had some pretty good draws. I mean, the Wasteland was just a missequence on their part. Like, that would have been really good, though, because they would have just gotten through and drawn a free card. They go ahead and Wasteland my Rishport. Seems good. Can't block. Have a dragon, but not blocking with the dragon. They have a flyer now with a Stonecloaker. And I know this is one of my D&T lists. I like this list a lot. It's really, like, it has Stonecloaker. It's got a lot of sick stuff going on. Stonecloaker is not a card you see a ton of. Force them to pop or return their 2/2 with Caracas and Arc Trail doing 2 damage or 1 damage to their face. They attack me for 6, hit me for 2, draw an additional card. Lotus Petal appears to be one of the draws they had. They have another flyer, which I was kind of like, all right, if they don't have another flyer, maybe I can win this. But they had another flyer. I don't draw into something to get me out of this. Actually, no, I do know what gets me out of this. And it was funny because it was the second card down. It's Stormbreath Dragon. Stormbreath Dragon actually taps down their flyer and hits exactly for 9 because the Stormbreath plus, or the Thunderbreath Regent plus the Stormbreath actually hit for exactly 9, which was my second card down. Like, I did check when I was playing this. It's like, all right, Stormbreath, and it wasn't Stormbreath. So I ended up dying here. Opponent had a pretty solid string of draws, but, I mean, once they get the card engine online, it's going to be real tough. Real tough to beat, like, a Sword of Fire and Ice. This deck he's playing is a deck I built, and it's kind of designed to be able to fight pretty even-handedly with the medium decks. Outside of the most absurd, busted mana draws, like, you tend to have a really good median game against them because it has stuff like Silver Knight, Core Firewalker, and then like Sword of Fire and Ice, Umezawa's shit. Like, it just has a lot of good like stuff that is really good at kind of grinding value against other mid-range to mid-range aggressive decks. Anyways, quick pause, guys. I'll be back momentarily for game number 3. Alrighty, guys, we're back. Yeah, this hand looks good. I mean, it needs another red source, but like it's got a lot of mana. I go ahead and play out the Goblin Crater Maker here. I could be doing better things with 3 mana on turn 1, but it's a thing to do on turn 1. Take my damages off this, win the flip. Yep. Draw into the ruby. Seems good. Now, yeah, so I go ahead and play this Koth out. Hit them for 6. They get a counter on the Aether Vial. Not looking great for them, but they have fast mana of their own. They have an Ancient Tomb here, and they're able to play on a Blade Splicer, going down to 12. But this is a pretty significant wall of beef to kind of block me out here. The Aether Vial is also kind of irritating because I have this Sudden Demise, which is really good against this deck that they're playing. Outside of like them having like the Core Firewalker or the Silver Knight, but in general pretty good against them. But because they're able to flash these cards at instant speed, like it kind of obscures information. They go ahead and play out a 1-drop here. I believe it's a Hero of the Pantheon or Mardu War Reaper. Block the Goblin Crater Maker. I could have opted to sack it to blow up the Aether Vial. Maybe I should have here. Yeah, maybe I should have. They're going to be up to 4 mana anyways in their next turn, so I figured it wasn't going to allow them to do too much busted stuff. But in this case, I'm punished. Like, they have a 3-drop plus a 2-drop, so like they are getting a little bit of value. They're still getting value off this vial, but now they're down to 2 cards. I'm kind of in trouble now, actually, because I have this like Sudden Demise to kind of deal with the board. But Koth is templated in a way that like I can't make this land actually attack this turn. It has Summoning Sickness still, and I didn't have another mountain. So the Gideon is going to be able to put the Koth down to 1. If they don't have like an equipment or something like that. I have this Scred still though, so like Scred does deal 2. Koth goes down to 1. Opponent is at 5 though, so like I'm not that far off from just drawing a burn spell and like possibly winning with that. Bolt, not bad. Go ahead and fire up this mountain here. Aether Vial is 3. See a Brightling come in. Brightling is another cool card that like I have in this list that I really enjoy. This card is very powerful. But they unfortunately have Brave the Element, so I'm like, oh man, like this is rough because they're going to be able to give this thing lifelink, gain 3. They can power it up to a 5/1. Scred is not going to do anything at this point. I can't double spell to get it. Another option I had is like just throwing the bolt to the face, but like I think here you want to get rid of Brightling because it's so very powerful with an Aether Vial on 3 in play. This is really like the biggest interaction with this card, and they kind of just had it all. That's good. Like this deck is this Death and Taxes deck is set up to be able to do that. It's set up to have these like cool like tricks they can do in combat, like cool effects they can have with Aether Vial. Accrue like this value, and like despite having like one of the more busted starts, like not the most busted starts, I didn't like turn 1 Koth, but one of the more busted starts, like I'm in a lot of trouble here. Like I'm probably losing, and Moto may just be like freaking out. Yeah, so I draw to Rabblemaster, but like Rabblemaster does nothing here. I play Rabblemaster, they can bounce this thing with 1 white mana, and then they can use Aether Vial to put it back in and block the Gabo token. Scred doesn't do enough damage to actually kill the Brightling, unless they like do something silly like make it a 5/1 or something like that, try to give it lifelink, then maybe I can Scred it. They got an active Gideon with an active Emblem in play, and like, yeah, they just get me. Lifelink is very good. Lifelink with built-in protection and a way to play that same card at flash speed is problematic. So it's possible, looking back on this game, maybe I want to just Crater Maker the Aether Vial early. I don't know. I think, honestly, it was a fine play to actually just trade off with the Mardu War Reaper. I did also have the Sudden Demise. Maybe that was just greedy on my part. Maybe I should have just actually traded off with the Aether Vial. I mean, and I could also be just being post-Hawk now. I don't know. It's a very close game, a very tight game. So it's one of those games that like you definitely look at and you're like, all right, like I see how I lost this now. Like, did I play incorrectly to get to this point, or did it just end up playing out that way? And I don't know. I have to relook this game a significant amount of times. I don't know if I misplayed this one. Like, it was going to be tight either way based on the cards that we had access to over the course of the game. And I don't think I per se played this one wrong, but I do think that the decision that ended up kind of like deciding this game was utilizing the Crater Maker to blow up the Aether Vial as opposed to just trading with the 2/1. And then looking to get value further down the road with Sudden Demise, but putting Koth at greater risk. Koth does go to greater risk there, because if they play like an equipment, Koth just dies. If they have something else like a Silverblade Paladin that they can play off the Aether Vial the following turn to pump one of their things, Koth just dies. And really, the only show I had in town was Koth, but maybe I should have relied on the power of my deck just to give me more threats to close the game out. But they weren't per se that low at that point in time. So no, it's a tough call. It's kind of a judgment call, and I'm not sure, which was the correct way to go with it. So, interesting game, though. Very, very interesting game against Rambi here. We got one more that I'm going to showcase with medium red, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Alrighty, guys, back. Last game here. All right, so that hand's not very good. This hand's a keep, but it's fine. I mean, if we draw a 3-drop, it's pretty good. It's got Price of Progress, the 2 non-basics, which is always good. So they play a Snow Island and say go. Play out a Mobilized District. They play out Mountain, so we're playing Blue-Red again. I had a very slow hand this time. They ice me, which is not great because I was kind of hoping to play on a Thought-Knot Seer this turn. One of the things about this hand too is that it's gonna have difficulty. It's gonna have to just drop bomb. I can't afford to sit around and not play around counter magic, or sit around and play around counter magic. The way you play around counter magic is in this deck just by dropping the stuff like, hey, counter this. Hey, counter this. You play your shittiest one first is basically what it is. I actually think Koth is shittier than Phoenix. I think Phoenix, if it resolves, is better in this matchup. They Merchant Scroll 4 Ancestral Recall here, so I'm pretty sure Ancestral Recall is getting cast this turn. I attempt to play out a Thought-Knot Seer. They cast an Ancestral Recall and then remand by Thought-Knot Seer. So, yep. This Price of Progress is looking pretty bad. I take a look at their hand. Actually, what I end up doing here is kind of interesting. It's their hand's good. Obviously, it's a lot of cards. It's got Dig, it's got Electrolyze, it's got Magus, it's got Factor Fiction. It's got all this card draw, Force Negation, Miscalc. What I end up taking is actually Pyromancer, because Pyromancer is actually a way they realistically win. Maybe that was greedy on my part. Maybe I should have just left it because I have Searing Spear, but they have counters for days. They have card draw for days. I feel like they can counter my non-creature spells very easily. I don't per se mind that they cast this Magus out. There we go. You see a Force of Negation get cast, and yeah, that's going to happen. I can't really attack here because they have an Electrolyze, so if I attack, they're going to just block with their Magus and then Electrolyze my Thought-Knot Seer. The Magus is not a card they really need to keep around in this matchup. They dig through time here and then I believe find a Nibble Obstructionist plus some other card that I don't know of. They double block here to get another card off of the Thought-Knot Seer and lose both their onboard threats. I go ahead and just blow up their secondary red source to keep them off of an Inferno Titan or a Niv Mizzet or Niv Mizzet Faerun or whatever the card name is. They play out a Temple of Epiphany here. Draw to Lannery Storm. I should not have tapped my Ancient Tomb there. That was unnecessary. Yeah. I didn't think she resolved. I thought she got countered. Well, let's watch Moto. All right, Moto freaked out. I lose this game, though, guys. They end up... that's what happened. They Snapcaster... I believe Lannery does resolve, but they Snapcaster into Ancestral and then play an Inferno Titan, blow up my Lannery with Inferno Titan, and then attack me to death with Inferno Titan. Pretty sure that's what ends up happening. So I lose this one. Double Ancestral. Yeah, that's good. That's one of the ways that the blue-red deck tends to beat this deck, is if you don't present good early pressure. This hand just didn't really present good early pressure. Fire Ice was pretty strong in this one. And then just 2 Ancestrals was enough to bury us in cards that we weren't really able to kind of present that pressure we needed to and get out of it. So lose this first one. Go into game 2, guys. Alrighty, we're back, and yeah, this hand's keepable. I mean, honestly, this is a good hand against a kind of a fair blue deck, blue-red, because it presents decent early pressure. Is it stellar? No. It also has Direfleet Daredevil, which could Mise an Ancestral if we're lucky. Play out a Harsh Mentor. They Force Spike my Harsh Mentor. I'm like, oh, okay, it's been Force Spiked. They cast an Ancestral and then miss on land, so they kept their hand based on the power of Ancestral, I assume. This is pretty unfortuitous for them because I'm going to fetch for a Mountain here, play this Direfleet Daredevil out, and then draw 3 cards myself. I get to Ancestral here, which is pretty hot. I assume they have a lot of good cards in hand. They have a lot of counters, so I just start casting the Bomb Train. 4-drop. You want to counter it? Yep, they want to counter it. They mentioned it in chat. I am playing Simian Spirit Guide, so they probably should have paid 2 for Logic Knot, but we mentioned it. We were chatting in the game. But I don't have Simian Spirit Guide. I play out the Koth the Hammer. They Spell Pierce it. Maybe I should have actually played out Lodestone Golem because it plays around that card. I think against this deck I tend to rather have Lodestone Golem, but I don't know. On this mana situation and in this deck, maybe I think I tend to prefer it. I just go ahead and play out a Heart of Kirin and then play out a Handwear Garrison. They Memory Lapse the Handwear Garrison, and I have Handwear Battlement on board. Redraw the Handwear Garrison. Attempt to cast an Arc Trail. Force them to use their Grim Lavamancer to kill my thing. Exile a couple cards from their yard. Play out the Handwear Garrison. They made this play because I kind of wanted to see what they would do, see if they left up counter magic for the Handwear Garrison or not. They blow up the Handwear Garrison. I'm never going to get to have this combo go off, right? I end up playing out big loads. Give big loads haste, knock them down to 1. They tap their Shivan Reef to go to dead, and we go on to game number 3. So that was game 1, guys. More of a median kind of draw, but I think against this matchup, you don't have to have the turbo mana. You can have 2 drop into 3 drop into 4 drop. That's just fine. 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop is fine in this matchup because they're not a fast deck. And if you force them to react along a curve, that's fine. And eventually they're going to run out of stuff, and you'll draw into more stuff and you'll kill them with it. That's kind of my plan going into this matchup. It's just they don't have enough to. We have more gas than they have answers to gas. Is kind of what it is. So you're fine keeping these medium draws or median draws that have more low end Harsh Mentor and Direfleet Daredevil, because they have to deal with the stuff still. It'll eventually kill them on a reactive deck. Quick pause, guys. Back for game number 3. Alrighty, guys, we're back. Last game I'm going to show. This hand's unkeepable, has no mana, so starting off well. This hand's pretty gas. I mean, it needs to hit another red source, but it's got a lot of fast mana. I'm probably going to Faithless Looting on turn 1. I like Faithless Looting with this hand. So get rid of the 2 cards I actually found, which are Magus, which is not good against Blue Moon, and then Arc Trail, which, its value vacillates a lot, in my opinion. I'm going to play out the Handward Garrison here. Just get a big, stupid thing on board. If they don't have a Lightning Bolt, it'll just stick around and kill them. I get to attack them with this thing. Make some 1/1s. Handward Garrison, again, a card that does not see play outside of this deck. They counterflux the Harsh Mentor. I just go ahead and cast the Direfleet Daredevil. Exile one of the cards from their yard to keep their Jace from flipping earlier. And, for whatever reason. It probably should have been negate if I wanted to play around Snapcaster, but I was honestly just doing it to keep their Jace offline. I go ahead and play out all of this stuff. So I draw into the Writhing, or Handwear, or whatever this thing is. I'm actually able, in the last game of the night, and this is the first time I've ever done this, Assembletron in medium red. Was it really relevant? No. I didn't win because I did this. It's just I won doing this. I won because fast mana is busted, and I got early board presence when my opponent had to make a board impacting play early. It's really how I won. I presented enough pressure that they had to make a board impacting play. It tapped them down on their turn, and I was able to resolve this goofy thing, a 2/3 that makes 1/1s when it attacks, and they didn't have the burn to deal with it on the next turn, and they were in a position where they were so far behind they couldn't get back ahead. That's really why I won. But the cool thing is, I actually got to meld, what is it called? Weld. Put these 2 fucking cards together to make a 7/4 Trample Haster that makes 3/2s when it attacks, which is sick. It does something like 13 damage. It's just absurd. So anyways, get Rami here in the last game. Blue-red versus medium-red. Definitely appreciate the games, Rami. I think Rami's a hell of a player. I just think medium-red is a hell of a busted deck. We had 2 match losses, a few game losses, but, out of, I think, 6 or 7 games, they ended up jamming. I think I dropped 2. I think the Bant Blink deck, if it gets to go long, i.e. the medium red deck has not a turbo draw, will tend to go to Bant, but if the medium red deck gets a Soul Ring or a Mana Crypt, I think it tends to be favored. It's built to exploit those cards maximally. And then we lost one that was very tight against D&T. I think that was just a tight matchup, but I will say this about, Remy played well. That D&T list is also fairly teched out to kind of beat up on red decks right now, because it's my build that I think Remy picked up. And, it has a lot of crazy stuff to beat this style of deck. It's got Silver Knights, it's got, friggin' Core Firewalker. It's built to beat this kind of deck, and then red deck wins. Because that, and red removal, because red removal is one very big in this format, because it's cheap. It has a lot of opportunities to get 2-for-1 advantage. But really, it's just the efficiency of it, and the rate it goes for what it can trade up for in the format is pretty high. So yeah, that deck is kind of set up in a way that it tries to mitigate that as much as possible. That specific Death and Taxes list. But that said, we had some decent matchups, and then we had some matchups where we just raffle stomped him, and it's no fault of his own. It's just this deck has it probably has 2 more points than it needs to have, possibly even 3 more points than it needs to have, and hopefully relatively soon we'll see this medium deck get balanced out a little bit, because I do think it is a little bit. It's at a point where it has impacts, I think, on the metagame. If you're playing Canadian Highlander as competitively as it can be. Now, if you're just playing for fun, you don't have to really worry about it. Not that it's like a high stake format, but like folks also want to have some diversity in like the most competitive versions. Because like for me, I'll tell you, part of the draw is that it is a competitive casual format, and like I like to build decks to win in it. And if you have to account for certain decks in a metagame to a higher extent, or have to assume that if they get certain draws, you need to be prepared for them, it can be game warping. And I think that medium red is in this specific point spread, because there's a medium variety of decks. Like medium green is kind of the same deal. This specific style of point spread, basically Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Mox, or Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Jit. Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Mox, Vault, or Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Jit, and Strip Mine. I think are very overpowering point combinations right now when put into monochromatic decks that exploit 2 colorless plus X of whatever color they're in. And hopefully in the near future we'll see that kind of change. But I also do think they're very powerful strategies. And I think with the changes that we're likely to see in the near future, these decks don't get that much worse. Like they become a little more reasonable, I guess is what I would say. They're still going to have actually just about as many fast mana starts as they have right now. They're just not going to be free rolling like that Jit. They're not going to be free rolling that Mox. So I mean, they'll have a little bit less if they're in like the all-in category of having all the fast mana they can possibly have with the 10-point system. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good thing when they kind of get depowered a little bit, because like I didn't have to play particularly hard here, and in some cases I probably misplayed. I mean, if you go through and look at all these games, I'm sure there's a misplay somewhere that I maybe failed to mention. But overwhelmingly we're still able to win in kind of a decent variety of different matchups. That said, how do you beat this deck? One of the decks that I kind of have worked on to try to mitigate the effects of this deck, because I hate losing to this deck. This deck is it's not that I hate losing, it's just not fun. Like, it's just like you get beat by the high roll draws on this, and you're just like, okay, like a game of Magic was played here. It's like, it's just not very fun. It's goofy, and it's kind of interesting and funny to see the first time, but like if you're playing it like left and right, it's just like it gets old, because you're just like, man, this is just not good Magic. I'm just losing to nonsense, and it kind of to some extent is like fast mana can kind of feel that way. But I do think it has a place in the format, because like this is very fun to some people, and like I don't want to. I would not personally want to take away someone's fun if this is like what they enjoy in this format, in this metagame. This is the kind of stuff they enjoy doing in Magic. Like, who am I to take that away, right? Like, who is anyone? Like, like it's a format for fun. But I do think there's a balancing required to it. That said, like Esper, I think is pretty good. Esper midrange, I think, is pretty good against this deck. Almost every deck will get turboed over by their fast starts, by this deck's fast starts. But I think Esper has a good median game plan against it. Like, if they both have the high roll draws, like Esper will still probably beat it if it has like its force negation force, will to stop the fast mana early. And Esper just tends to have a lot more 2-for-1 advantage cards in it, so it can kind of just grind this deck out, grind medium red out. I think Bant Blink also, the Bant mid-range pod decks can have decent game against them because of the fact they're able to grind a lot of card advantage. But again, like, it's very die rolly, and it really comes down to what their hand looks like in their opening sequence, which again kind of ties back to like what I think the most important skill set for playing this deck is, which I think is understanding the engine of the deck, which is its mana. Its cards are pretty much all replacements of each other. They do things that are slightly different, but like at the end of the day, they're all just like they're basically threats, the most overpowering threats along a curve that end the game quickly, and like they all kind of do the same thing. Like, some of them are better in given situations, but like they all effectively kind of do the same thing. It's like, hey, deal with this. Hey, deal with this. Like, every turn you want to be saying, hey, deal with this. And yeah, and that is it's kind of crazy to say this is one of the best decks in the format. And that's all it is. Like, it's not that sophisticated. It's not that challenging to play. Very good, and I have a lot of respect for the deck because of how good it is, and because of how powerful the deck is. I think it's really a testament to building too, because I think the folks who kind of did the inroads in building this deck, I think was I'm going to butcher this. Ben Wheeler helped on it, but it was Nate Hogman, I think, is the guy who really kind of set the groundwork, or at least the theoretical groundwork, for the medium decks. And there's some hella decks. I mean, they're fucking great. Like you see this thing charging in there and just running folks over, and it does. But yeah, I think relatively soon we're going to see that kind of downshift a bit, kind of shift gears down a little bit, and we'll hopefully see this deck get a little more tamed in. But right now it feels like it's Storm and it's medium red, and then maybe Jeskai is reasonable too, and Moto's failing, so I'm gonna quit ramblings, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it there, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the medium red content. I enjoyed providing it, and now hopefully I can never play that deck again. All right, take care.